Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell at before you blow up a plane.
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what, good thing to say, I doubt it will stand up to something. I haven't been disrespectful to you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt.
I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. Boy, I look tan today. We're coming to you from iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please leave a 5-star review. I got a bunch of stand-up shows that I am so excited to promote. I can't believe it's August already. The summer has flown by. I am mad. I'm a little bit nervous about how I guess it's one of these things. As you get older, the summer just goes by quicker. But I am looking forward to the fall. I will be heading back to Texas to headline the Cap City Comedy Club on Thursday, September 8th. That's in Austin. Then I'm heading to Philly Wednesday, September 14th to headline the Helium Comedy Club over there in Philly. And then I'm doing 2 shows at the Comedy Cove in Springfield, New Jersey on Friday, September 16th and Saturday, September 17th with my buddy Kevin Dombrowski. He'll be at both of those shows as well. And it's not on my calendar yet, but I will be in Bridgeport, Connecticut on September 22nd, headlining the Bridgeport Stress Factory. So come check that out in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Then I'll be heading to New Orleans, 4 shows, Friday, September 30th and Saturday, October 1st at the Comedy House, New Orleans. I'll have my buddy Amanda Gale opening for me, so that will be very fun additionally. Then we're doing our second content house, and to kick things off, we'll be doing a Comedians of the Compound at the Orlando Improv, Thursday, October 27th. Come see me, Anthony Cumia, Gino Bisconti, Alex Stein, Lila Hart. This is going to be such a fun show. You can get tickets now at the orlandoimprov.com or just from my website, chrissiemayr.com. And immediately following this show, we will be kicking off our 48-hour live stream live from the Content House in Orlando, Florida. Very excited for that. And a quick shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Nickel City Cigars. This is a really fantastic veteran-owned small business up in Buffalo, New York. They really specialize in kind of unique artisanal blends of cigars. And I wasn't even a cigar person. I was very much judged for my request for give me something vanilla or like a tasty flavor. And the owner, Tommy, sat me down. He's like, no, let me show you the way. And he's got all these blends. So if you go to nickelcitycigars.com and purchase things, if you use promo code CMP, I think you get 10 or 15% off. Not too shabby. Plus, I'm going to do a whole episode with Tommy, the owner. He's got a great beard. He's a veteran. This is a great shop he has. Super based, super fun guy. So look out for that. And he's going to walk us through all the different blends. So check out nickelcitycigars.com. Also, I want to do a quick shout out to my t-shirt provider because I had to switch t-shirt providers. I had a shirt that TeePublic actually pulled down. It was my classic Rootin' for Putin shirt. They're like, no, that will not fly here. So I picked up shop and moved over to flagranttriggers.com. You can still get the classic Rootin' for Putin shirt to confuse your friends. Mayor. Now we have on here the Make America Great Again shirt. This was recently put on the site. We got the Johnny Dabbler. Keep Dabbling, Stuttering John shirt. We got the Simpcast shirt and the Smayer shirt. If you're a fan of me or Slayer, you can have a shirt that combines us both. Go to flagranttriggers.com. $27, I think, includes shipping. These shirts are super soft, super fun. And if you have a fun t-shirt design, send it my way. I'm always looking for new t-shirt designs. Okay. I'm so excited for this next guest. I actually sort of bumped into him a little bit at that show I did with Alex Stein. That was like the RFK Children's Health Defense fundraiser about like a month or so ago. But I didn't get to talk to him very much because we're busy. We're just like ships passing. So I'm so happy that he's here today. He is a father, and he's been very active in the fight against child abuse, otherwise known as this transgender craze that's sort of sweeping our nation currently. So I'm so happy to have him here. Billboard Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. I'm super excited to be here. We chatted a little bit outside the Minds conference as well.
Yes.
Walking down the street there.
All of a sudden, you just like popped into my life. We're like at the same events. We know all the same people. Our circles are colliding. Do people ever tell you look like Nigel Barker, who was I think he's a famous photographer or
Oh
model?
yeah, I know. I think I know who that is. He's way better looking than me.
Stop it.
Yeah, he is. He is. But thank you. That's very nice. He's a good looking dude.
He's a good looking dude. Yeah, you're just another shaved head hottie up in here, just trying to make the world a better place. And I was so excited to talk to you because, and I keep talking about this book in probably like 5 different podcasts. I've mentioned Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage. I highly recommend it if you're a parent, if you're thinking of becoming a parent, or if you just want to understand like this crazy transgender craze that's kind of sweeping the nation right now. And she really gets into the details of how it really is. It's taking advantage of a kind of vulnerable population. You know, when I was 13, 14, I was very much a tomboy. I had no boobs. I was an athlete. I remember, I don't know if it was my mom or somebody was like, we got to take you for a training bra. I'm like, there's nothing to train. Like, what are we doing here? I hated the idea of bras and feminine clothing, and it was just so awkward. And I think I'm just very grateful to have grown up when I did, because I was also an insecure preteen and teen, and I think I could have very easily been led down the path of like, oh well, maybe you're not meant to be a girl, so it's scary. And I'm interested in how you kind of, and I hate using the word activism because it implies that you're on the fringe and you're mentally unstable.
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear what I do. People will think for sure I'm mentally unstable. Maybe advocate for children is a better word than activist.
That is better. Yeah. So how did you, I guess, what was the spark that ignited? Because you were kind of known for, that's why you're called Billboard Chris. Like you're kind of known for just maybe going out to like a pride parade or an event, like simply with a billboard that people can read and be like, oh, wow.
I'm a walking billboard.
To grab people's attention. How did you get started with this?
So late 2019, I started learning about this transgender craze, seducing our daughters, to borrow the title from Abigail Schreier's book. And I have 2 girls. So I was concerned because I see this as something like a cult in our society. And a dad's number one job in life is to protect his kids. So I started learning all about this. And the more I learned, the crazier it got. And in July of 2020, I was getting pretty up to speed on all this stuff. I'd been researching pretty much every night for a little more than half a year, just reading things. And there's this woman in England named Posey Parker who put up a sign.
Heard of her.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's got platinum blonde hair, kind of has a little bit of a Marilyn Monroe look to her, but she's fantastic. She's out there on the front lines fighting for women's rights. And
she was in Best of Show, which I just watched today.
Okay.
That's where I know her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
And she put up this sign, a really controversial sign, at the Edinburgh train station. And it said, now, prepare yourself. It's a little crazy. It said, I love J.K. Rowling.
Wow. How dare she
Yeah.
support that turf?
I know. It had a big heart on it too. I heart J.K. Rowling. And it lasted a day because some mean people on Twitter complained that it was hate speech. And so the government run train authority took it down.
Wow.
And I got tired of all this child abuse going on, which we can get into. And I got tired of our speech being canceled. You know, we're supposed to be able to talk about any issue. And if there's something as crazy going on as trying to change the sex of our kids, well, that's something we should certainly be allowed to talk about. And she put up that sign, that poster, because J.K. Rowling has spoken out about, you know, the erasure of women's sex-based rights and also this medical abuse going on with kids. And it just really peeved me that that sign got taken down. And I happened to be reading Harry Potter at the time every night with my little one, who was 8 years old at the time. And so I said, forget this. We can't let this fly. And I put up a big billboard in Vancouver, Canada, where I'm from, leading into downtown, that said the exact same thing. And it got paint bombed overnight, went up in September of 2020. And then the next day, a Vancouver politician predictably said it was hate speech, and they took it down.
Which politician was it that said that?
Her name is Sarah Kirby-Young.
What was her position?
She's a city councillor.
Okay, wow.
For the city of Vancouver. The city of Vancouver has also taken funding away from a rape shelter in Vancouver because they don't allow men inside. Yeah.
It's like, it's a bad analogy to say throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but it's like, come on, like it's just a perfect example of how like we are ignoring women who really need help, but instead like, oh no, but we're not being inclusive. So what would you say to people who would say, how do you know, Chris? Like, how do you're a man, you're a cis het man. How do you know what's going on inside the mind of somebody else?
Well, I don't really need to know what's going on in the mind of somebody else to know that there are only two sexes and that we shouldn't be trying to change the sex of children with experimental drugs and cross-sex hormones and even cutting off the breasts of girls as young as 12 years old, which is happening, which is very provable because we have video of a doctor from Kaiser Permanente in Oakland admitting to just that. I tweeted it out recently. But that billboard got taken down, and that, of course, caused a whole lot of outrage online, and I was prepared for that, and I leveraged that outrage into a little fundraising campaign, and I ended up putting up billboards across the United States of America, where freedom of speech is still alive and well. So I got billboards up in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Utah, Times Square, all throughout the metro in Washington, D.C. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then the end of September 2020 came along, and that
How long were the
ended.
Billboards up for?
Somewhere just a few days. Washington, D.C., we had them up in several different stations in the underground for a whole week. Times Square for a few days. There was about 15 different ones that went up throughout Utah because a businessman in Utah helped me out.
And what did each of them say? Or did they say the same thing?
They all said, I love J.K. Rowling.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really successful. It ended up making news all over the world. Germany, France, Holland, UK, Australia, US. It was good because she's, really evil and stuff. So, made a bunch of
I'm
news.
seeing all these articles. I love J.K. Rowling billboard declared transphobic and take it down. Vancouver. Dang.
Yeah. So at the end of September, that campaign of mine came to a close, but I was not going to stop because I feel like this is my calling in life to do what I can to create awareness. And there's only really two big sign companies in Canada, and I couldn't travel to the US at the time because COVID,
the thing.
So much science to that, of course. But I wasn't allowed to put up any signs with the two main sign companies we have. So I said, okay, well, I don't like being censored and I don't like having my speech taken away. So if I can't put up a sign, I will become a sign. And I became a human billboard. And I had a couple signs made. The first two signs I had made said gender ideology does not belong in schools, because social media and schools are really the genesis of this craze that's going on. And as long as we have this in schools, and if we're graduating millions of kids every year that believe in this new religion, we're never going to solve this problem. So that's the head of the snake that we need to cut off. And my other sign said, I love J.K. Rowling, because, I wasn't going to let them
You're
cancel
like, I'm going to
that
stick
message.
with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that got me a lot of hate. I've been attacked a bunch of times. I got arrested twice in late 2020 after getting assaulted. Ended up getting my arm broken by Antifa in Montreal in March of 2021.
So when you said like attacked, I thought, okay, maybe just online, but you've been physically attacked.
Yeah, I'm out there in the real world. That's my whole thing is we can't just talk about this online because you're just in a bubble. You're just reaching the same people. So I go outside, and I went outside day after day after day after day, standing by myself through the Canadian winters, 6-7 hours at a time, having one conversation at a time with people on the street. So I'd go downtown Vancouver near the train station where it's super busy, and I would just talk to people. And I felt good because every time I talk to a parent and they learn what's going on, then they can protect their kids because these people had no idea what's happening.
How do you approach? Oh, sorry. You can interrupted you.
I just knew that if I kept going, that this would have no option but to grow into something where I'd end up on fabulous podcasts with spectacular people.
It's
like
all
Chrissie
leading
Mayr.
up to this moment.
This
started.
This is because I stood out on the street in November of 2020 that I'm here talking to you right now.
So much props. I think it's weird. Like I have no problem talking to a room full of people. Stand up is no issue. The public speaking thing, not a big deal. But one-on-one to me is so scary. A one-on-one stranger, because it's like you're just feeling the full force of that and that rejection or that, I don't know, it seems pretty vulnerable to me. And it's like, what even is going to be your elevator pitch? Like you don't know where that person's coming from. So did you, and also to stand outside with a sandwich board on for like 6-7 hours, did you have any experience like working for Subway? Like how did you know how to just like survive with just a sign on you? Would you pee in a bottle? How are we doing this?
Well, there's a washroom nearby at a mall downtown that I can go to, but we don't want to get into all those routines because it's difficult sometimes. But where was I going with this? I take a lot of abuse, but whatever. It's just verbal abuse mostly. I have been physically assaulted more than 20 times now. Jeez. But most of those are pretty minor. I got mobbed by 200 university protesters in Ottawa last year in October. Got punched in the head a couple times, got painted on, had my car keyed, got spat at. Got my signs destroyed, all with about 12 different police present who just stood there and watched. And just this past weekend, I was at Vancouver Pride because in Canada, we have Pride season. Because 1 month is not enough in Canada. It has to be June, July, August, and September. So we had Vancouver Pride, which has about 600,000 people at it. And they're so much more militant up here in Canada. I went to New York Pride in June.
Yes, I saw pictures with you and Carrie Smith and Mike Harlow, and I was like, he's getting around. Look at that.
Alex Stein, Primetime 99.
Always on the grind.
There was a couple hostile guys, but it was really peaceful. Up here in Canada, people think we're all polite, but I don't know what's happened in this country. Well, actually, I do. We can get into that. Justin Trudeau happened, but man, you are not allowed to have an unacceptable opinion in this country. People come for you hard. So it is a bit crazy out there, but I don't care. I'm just going to keep going because there's nothing more important than the health of our kids. And we simply have to put a stop to this. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. You asked me how I got into the sandwich board business. I have a traditional career arc, Chrissy. I was a financial advisor managing people's life savings.
I look at you and I see a financial advisor. That was my first impression.
There you go. People think police officer sometimes, lawyer, doctor.
I very much trust you with my bank account. Yeah, you've a trusting faith.
Can I have access to it?
There's not much in there, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I used to manage money and then had a little insurance business and I quit all that. I basically had to because I was devoting too much time to this and I didn't have time for marketing. Wow. Plus, if you Google my name, it's pretty nasty. So, it kind of killed my business. So I just do this now. This is, I think, what I'm meant to do. And now I'm traveling around the US. That's where I do most of my big trips. And I just go to cities and good things happen every single time that I never expect to happen. I'm meeting so many amazing people. And we're starting to find other people to work with. And the best thing that I would say that's happened to me is I'm now working with a group called Moms for Liberty.
I've heard a lot about them.
Yes. So 2 moms on January 1st of 2021. They're only a year and a half old. These 2 moms, just regular moms who used to be school board members, got tired of all the nonsense and they started this organization. They now have 100,000 moms in 40 states.
How do they recruit members? Like, how did
They're
Facebook?
just great. They're just fantastic.
Yeah.
They're spectacular with the media. They've got all the media contacts. They've got great people around them. It's not just them. They have surrounded themselves with a ton of great people. And there was obviously a need for this. So their motto really is 2022 is the year of the parent, and we do not co-parent with the government. And I love that. And so now I'm working with their chapters all over the country. As I travel the country, I'm going to be visiting with all these different chapters of moms and dads, because there are dads in there too. And I'm going to help them get up to speed on all this gender ideology business so they can go to school board meetings, raise heck, get those viral moments, and put a stop to this, because it's going to be parents that put an end to this, not politicians or anyone else. It's going to be moms and dads.
So you've been attacked in the US, but attacked worse, physically speaking, in Canada. Who is like attacking you mostly? Like who are the people that you find you're pissing off the most?
Oh, I mean, attacks like physically. The people online, I just block them right away. Of course, there's a lot of that. And I've had, whatever, dozens of death threats. Just the other day, someone signed me up for 40 different email newsletters.
Yep. That's happened to
popular.
Me. Yep.
Yeah.
They like to do that.
I'm getting emails from, the Satanic Club and things like that. It's just annoying. And I have my phone number and my email on my website. I'm not hiding at all. So sometimes I get, interesting phone calls. But my philosophy is whenever anyone comes for me, I just use that to expose them and show what we're dealing with. So honestly, they're doing me a favor. And these two police officers a couple weeks ago were kind of threatening to arrest me for being present in a public, on a public sidewalk right beside this Pride event going on, a different Pride event.
This was in Canada?
Yeah, this was in Canada.
Okay. Wow.
And I know my rights. We don't have the Constitution like you do. We have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So we have the right to protest and freedom of conscience and freedom of assembly and all that stuff. And I know my rights. And quite honestly, I would love for them to arrest me, because I would love to go to court and challenge these illegal arrests. And they did arrest me before, and they charged me with causing a disturbance because I got assaulted by these anarchist types because I refused to listen to police who said I couldn't be there on public land. And they arrested me, charged me with causing a disturbance. And when I was released from jail, they gave me these conditions of my release where I couldn't even walk on all these streets in the center of downtown Vancouver. So for the first year I did this, all the first winter, the first spring, I couldn't even walk in the middle of downtown Vancouver. I wasn't allowed, or else I'd get arrested. And then 2 days before my first court hearing, they threw that out.
To see if you're on certain streets.
Yeah. It's illegal. They can't do it, but they do it anyway. And of course, our Crown prosecutor, which is like your straight prosecutor, threw out the charge. They didn't bother to prosecute, which I would have loved. But anyway, I'm just a little warrior out there trying to protect our kids.
Good for you. And I think a lot of this is done to intimidate and to silence people. Like I think most people are very intimidated by like the legal process or anything having to do with like going to jail. So that none of that seems to faze you, because it helps to know your rights, basically.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing and I know my rights. So honestly, if they arrest me, it just generates a lot of media now, because I do have a lot of media contacts now. And it would just boost my profile. And that's what I told the police the other day. And they kind of backed off right away. So they really don't know what to do with me. But I'm just going to keep heading out there.
That's why it's always good to like go out looking your best. That way, if you get arrested, like, hello, use it for content.
That's right. I pretty much always wear a blazer. You got to look good. You got to look like a professional. If you're out there with jogging pants and a wife beater, you're not going to get the respect you will in a blazer. But yeah, it's interesting. The dynamics are always interesting. I actually get more abuse when I'm on my own than when someone like Carrie Smith comes with me.
Really? Why is that?
Because she's a female. And people see me, 6'2" white guy with a shaved head, and they just assume I'm a Nazi or something. And it just makes it a bit softer presentation or whatever, I guess, if there's a woman with me. So honestly, having like 100-pound woman with me, she's a great bodyguard because people treat us more nicely.
It's the opposite. But I feel like there are some things that where it does help to be like 6 foot, 6 foot plus, because I feel like less people do like mess with you. Certain types of people I feel like are less likely to mess with somebody who, and I feel like that's part of Alex Stein's secret success formula, because he's just so tall, like people do, and he's so friendly. He smiles. He's like a cartoon shark. He's got 200 teeth. He's just so nice. Even if someone is like cursing him to his face, he's like, "Have a great day. God bless."
Yeah, he looks like a cartoon character. He's very cute. I actually filmed the video of him outside the stand-up club when he completely owned all these lame Antifa protesters.
Stand. I was there. It was crazy. I was like really impressed with him. I was like, you have your own personal protesters out here.
Yeah, that was hilarious. They started chanting and he just overwhelmed them with his own chant about Antifa arts and crafts.
Right.
Because
I remember that.
All these protesters, I don't even know why they were there, because these really didn't seem like legitimate protesters. It seemed like someone gave them $10 each to go show up and gave them a piece of cardboard out of the trash to do some crayon art on.
I agree. They looked out of place. They didn't look like people who had ever been to a comedy club, let alone like know where the comedy clubs in the city are. And it's like, I was like, I don't think Alex really promoted that show very much. So I'm like, how did they even find him? It was definitely strange, but they were very Alex Stein specific, and they kind of just cowered. It's like when you confront these people in real life, a lot of them just can't back up their claims. And I think people, it's a lot easier to seem tough online than in real life, and you also have more of an impact in person. Like, that's why I think it's so great that you are just talking to people in real life. And even if it's just one person at a time, even if it's one person a week whose mind you change a little bit, it's a huge service.
Yeah, it's working. And 100 or 200,000 people will see me in a day. So I'm starting conversations even if I'm not having them. And it really hit me when I was at the Ottawa trucker protests back in February, because probably half of those people knew who I was. And that was super encouraging to me. Of course, they're kind of in the same circles of the freedom stuff and everything. And I've spoken at some freedom events and things like that. But that was super encouraging because it's definitely working. And I've had some things blow up here, and I've reached millions a few times. So, one person just out there saying, no, we are not going to let you do this to our kids. It works.
What of your videos or moments have blown up? Like, what has gotten the most viral or got the most attention?
When I got my arm broken, that one got, a million views. So that's one of the best things I did, was getting my arm broken.
Is it actual footage of your arm breaking? Like, how real is it?
I've got footage of the attack. So I was on a street called St. Catherine Street at 7 p.m. on a Friday night in March of 2021 in Montreal. And I wear a body cam because, I need to protect myself. And sometimes when I have a nice conversation, I'll post it online. So I got different facets to what I do. There's the work on the street, and then I'll post it online, and then some of those conversations get seen 50,000 times or whatever. But I got jumped by 5 or 6 guys, one woman as well. I was instantly punched in the face, punched in the back of the head. Simultaneously, one person ripped off my front sign, one person ripped off my back sign. One dude went out into the street and was stomping on it and stomping on my body cam.
Jesus.
And so I was mad that I lost my body cam, and I certainly wasn't going to run from these people, because that's, you just don't do that. So I pulled up my phone and I started filming. Nah, that one I had is cheap. I just bought a GoPro actually a few weeks ago.
And then put it on your head. Then nobody can reach it. They'll just jump and miss. Yeah. Because it's so tall.
So I pulled up my phone and I filmed the last half of that attack, like about a minute or so. And this guy picked up a traffic cone. And he swung this traffic cone. It was one of the big ones. He swung it at my head about 4 times, and I blocked it each time with my left forearm, doing my best wax on, wax off impression. And I think the second blow, you can hear a click in the video actually. The second blow broke my forearm.
Damn.
And then a guy came along with a...
could break your arm. I had no idea.
Well, the base on those things is pretty thick, right?
Damn. Wow.
Yeah. And then a guy came along with a mustard squirt bottle, and he squirted me all over with mustard.
Was it yellow or brown mustard?
It was yellow.
Spicy brown.
I prefer brown.
Yeah.
And I like mustard. I like mustard a lot. I just don't like it on my clothing and my head.
It's the cheap yellow kind. Yeah, that's bad, and it probably smells. Wow, that's so nuts, Chris.
And so then I got back to my hotel room. This was like the most surreal moment, because in Vancouver, or in Montreal at the time, they had a curfew of 8 p.m.
I remember that, especially during the during like the trucker
Yeah.
convoy.
Well, because COVID only starts spreading at 8 p.m., right? So
right. It is very
you got to
aware
get
of the
inside.
time. Mhm.
Yeah. So when I got out of the hospital like midnight, I waited for a cab for an hour. It never came. And I had one guy that had come out with me, and he took my jacket to go clean. But it's the most surreal moment I've had this whole time, because I'm walking through the street of Montreal in this snowstorm with the wind blowing sideways, with no jacket and my shirt open because I couldn't get my cast through my sleeve.
Oh.
A mile and a half back to my car, where I had this delicious poutine that I had bought earlier in the day. Do you know what poutine is?
It sounds like something sexual, but I know that it's not. Is it like just French?
Oh, it's pretty sexual. It's cheese curds and beef and whatever you put in it. There's usually potatoes or French fries on the bottom. It's this big, giant, sloppy, delicious mess.
As I
got back to my
suspected,
hotel
Chris
room.
gets all the poutine.
There you go. And I had no utensils to eat it with, and I only had one arm. And so I was sitting there in my hotel room at 1 a.m. eating poutine with my hands.
Don't feel bad. I have eaten many meals with my hands. Like, in fact, this
Yeah.
week I ate 7-Eleven hot dogs without the bun with my hands. So
Oh, well, that's a hot dog.
I'm back
without
on
the bun.
keto. And
Yeah, that's
I just, the roller food. I don't know. Do you have 7-Eleven in Canada?
Oh, yeah.
Do you probably have places where there's food just rotating for hours and you never know the origin? Those are what I buy and eat when I'm doing
Yeah. You don't want to buy the sushi in the 7-Eleven.
No, I mean, I've definitely eaten Dwayne Reed sushi. I've eaten a lot of affordable, weird gas station type food, but damn, we all have those moments where we're eating with our hands with our shirt open. So don't feel bad.
And then I took out the garbage bag to put over my cast so I could have a shower because I still have mustard on me. But you know what? Those are the moments that make life great. I've got all these stories for my grandkids now.
Are you hoping one day someone will attack you with ketchup just so you feel like it's evened out?
Maybe horseradish. I like horseradish.
Wouldn't that sting if it gets in your eye?
Yeah, maybe, especially maybe if they cause some wounds first and gets in the wound, that wouldn't be good.
That's what I would worry about is stuff getting in my eye. Like I know Elijah Schaefer, like I remember the footage of him getting attacked when he was covering like a BLM riot, and he punched in the face, like teeth loose and like cutting open the inside. It's just, you can get so hurt, and I don't know, kind of makes me nervous. So I give you props for even doing any of this by yourself.
I should probably say a little bit about like what I talk about, and I don't need to get into too many details, but the main signs that I wear say children cannot consent to puberty blockers. And normally I have another sign. I'm always wearing two signs. So that's kind of my main message about the medical abuse. My other sign is the definition of a dad. This is the technical definition of a dad, which is a human male who protects his kids from gender ideology. And so, there you go. That's me looking silly. But whatever.
Where do you get these signs made?
I have a print shop that makes them. I'm on my third print shop because the first two ended up not wanting to do business with me because they saw me on TV or something.
Wow. That's really stupid because it would bring just more business to their shop.
Yeah, it's, so children cannot consent to puberty blockers. So how in the world is that controversial? We are giving kids as young as 9 or 10 years old, because they give this to kids the moment they're hitting puberty. It's called Tanner stage 2. So for girl, this is before she's even had her first period. They're giving these kids these drugs so that they don't go into puberty. It stops the pituitary gland from releasing these hormones, which trigger estrogen in girls, testosterone in boys. So while they're on this drug, girls' breasts won't grow, their hips don't get wider, causes bone density loss. A young girl in Sweden just suffered spinal fractures while she was on this drug. 12 other kids at this Karolinska hospital in Sweden suffered catastrophic injuries. The FDA just came out last week and admitted that these drugs are causing brain swelling and even permanent vision loss in some of these kids. For boys, their penises never grow. And then that's just the first step. After that, they get given the opposite sex hormones. So it's girls getting testosterone, boys getting estrogen. They call them
gender affirming.
Yeah.
The language sounds nice.
Yeah. Always a euphemism. They call it gender affirming care. And the practice today is simply to affirm these children. It's really the only condition in the world where a child self-diagnoses themselves with something goes into the doctor, goes to see this endocrinologist at the Children's Hospital who has 12 years of specialist training. And the doctor just goes, "Yay, Susie, we're so glad you found your true self. You're really a boy." And oftentimes on the very first appointment, they're started on these drugs and hormones.
Yeah, you can
And-
get testosterone without a doctor's note. You can show up like you can do so much of this without your parents even knowing. It's scary.
In Washington State, they passed a bill this year. Any kid as young as 13 can go get puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, even surgeries, so double mastectomy, without their parents' knowledge, using their parents' insurance, and the parents will get the bill with the procedure or the drug redacted, so they don't even know what's going on.
What you mentioned the Tanner staging, and I was searching for a picture I could show that wouldn't be like get me flagged for nudity. So it's just describing. So it's basically like you're given these the puberty blockers you said when you hit or before stage 2.
Yeah, at Tanner stage 2. So this is
it's just when things are growing. It's like you are literally
the girl's breasts have
stopping
just
it.
started to grow, and she hasn't even had her period yet. And they start these kids on this, and this gets really gruesome. I don't need to get into it all, but man, however bad you think this gets, it gets worse. So these are children caught up in a craze. We've seen, for example, in the UK, where they have actual statistics on this, it's the same over here. They saw a 4,000% increase in the last 10 years, 40 times the number of girls presenting as trans. 35% of the kids that went to the gender clinic there, out of a sample size of more than 1,000, 35% had moderate to severe autism. If you include the mild cases, it goes above 50. Kids in foster care are way overrepresented. Kids who've had trauma, abuse, even sexual abuse, tomboys, kids who would grow up to be gay. Historically, kids with this condition called gender dysphoria, the majority grew up to be gay, and 80 to 90% of the time, these kids just grew out of the gender dysphoria. Today, we take these kids, we give them these drugs right away, which stop their hormones from coming. Their hormones, their natural hormones, are the cure. Now we stop that. We make it worse by giving them these other ones. But this is totally crazy, and it's really affecting autistic kids and kids who would grow up to be gay the most, and just all these vulnerable kids and all these girls who hate their bodies. Puberty is a tough time. Obviously, I think it's tougher for girls. And if a girl wants to climb trees or throw around football and never wants to wear a dress and she wants to have short hair, well, guess what? She's still 100% girl. So my whole message is one of body positivity. It's saying that there's no right way to be a boy or a girl. These gender ideologues love stereotypes so much that they think we need to transform a child's body just to match the stereotypes that we typically associate with each sex.
It's actually not inclusive at all. It's actually a lot more
opposite.
Regimented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
so
ever?
That's what I do.
Did you ever have a moment? How old are your daughters?
My girls are 10 and 12 now.
Did you ever have a moment with either of them personally where you were like, "Oh man, I have to step in, and this is my calling"? Like, was there ever a something that happened with their friends, or something you heard them say, or did it ever like touch home at all?
My girls are totally not affected by this, which makes me an anomaly because it's mostly people whose kids are affected who are speaking out. But the people who are speaking out mostly do it anonymously. Because if any parent who does have children affected by this were to take a big stand like I am, they would alienate their kids, first of all. But you'll get Child Protective Services coming to your door as well. Child Protective Services here in British Columbia, where I'm from, talked to a mom whose daughter's affected by this a little while ago and told her if she's not immediately affirming her child's name change and pronouns, and this all happened at school, by the way, if she's not immediately affirming that, they consider it abuse. It's like hitting your kid, and they can take your kid
when
away.
It actually is abuse. And yeah, you can't even, as a parent who's known this kid your whole life, their whole life, well, you've known them their whole life, all of a sudden that like a teacher or an administrator is like, no, we know your kid better, right? It's like, where are the adults? A kid can be just going through a phase or having a tough time, and they can be like, yeah, I'm gonna just like switch up my gender, and everyone's just like, okay, everyone's just yesing this whole process through. And it's so sick. Like, how many transitions would there be if like Big Pharma didn't make so much money off of each and every one? I doubt it would be as high.
This used to affect like 1 out of 30 to 100,000 is the number that Miriam Grossman, who's a doctor, she's in Matt Walsh's film What is a Woman? She talked about this.
I saw that. Yeah.
This used to affect 1 out of tens of thousands of children. Now, the Pittsburgh school district, for example, did a survey of all the high schools. 10% of the kids identified as trans or non-binary. A mom I just talked to a little while ago back home here, 45 kids, almost all girls, in a school of 900 are now socially transitioning. They have new names, they have new
That's
pronouns.
a lot. It's just
crazy.
become like a club. It's like girls socialize
Yeah.
in groups, and they kind of come out in groups. It's all like you kind of have to be part of it, and a huge percentage of these girls that kind of go this way, it's like typically, statistically, mostly white from kind of like well-off families, and
Mhm.
they come from parents that are like very liberal, very cool with everything. And it's almost like every child within them is going to have this desire to rebel and push against their parents. And I think I forget who I was talking to. Maybe it was Shapiro's sister Abby, something like there's no more like coming of age. The coming of age has been replaced by like the coming out as trans. And that's the way, like, if your parents are super liberal and cool with everything, it's like, how far do you have to go to actually push against them? And I just found that to be
Yeah.
like a really interesting stat that I'm like, it's white, well-educated liberal parents whose girls basically are going through this mostly.
That's right. I'm trying to pull up an email for you here. This mom in Washington State emailed me not long ago looking for a counselor for her kid because she can't find a counselor in the entire state of Washington because they now consider it conversion therapy to help a girl feel comfortable as a girl. It's totally fine to indoctrinate her to think she's a boy, but you can't help her feel comfortable with her sex.
Yeah, who's going to be there when she eventually realizes, like, oh, like my brain stopped growing with all this.
Mhm.
And they don't talk about when you start going on the like, you block your puberty and then you do the gender affirming hormones. It's like your ovaries, like your lady parts inside actually atrophy, and the pain and the infections and everything that comes along with that. It's like they don't talk about that because it's very easy to get hooked up into like, oh, the YouTube influencer. Here's where I sound old, but like you have TikTokers and YouTubers making it look super glamorous and as a way out of the awkward stage, which we all go through.
Yes, it's
and
recommended.
they're not.
It's recommended they remove their uterus after about 5 years on testosterone because it causes vaginal and uterine atrophy. A lot of these girls or young women are also getting their ovaries removed. And then you get into their 20s and their brains are, starting to finish developing because our brains keep developing until 25. These neurodivergent kids or these autistic kids, their brains are developing until about 30. And they're going, hey, what the heck did you do to me? I was just struggling in life. And I got sucked into this gender cult, really, is what it is. It's the biggest cult we've ever seen that's permeated all throughout our society, government, corporations, and schools. And now they've got all these side effects. They can't have a relationship. They can't produce estrogen on their own anymore because they've lost their ovaries. And we've created a lifelong medical patient for the pharmaceutical industry. And I tell people, because the left want to say that we're helping these children to be who they really are. And so I'll say, okay, so you're telling me that for the first time in history, humans have been on this planet for maybe 300,000 years. Just in this last 10-year period, a pharmaceutical company is here to help our children be who they really are. We evolved over billions of years. We have these super complex bodies with billions of processes going on every day. And now we're just going to mess with that with a pharmaceutical drug that's never been approved for this purpose, by the way. This drug, Lupron, it's called, the puberty blocker, it was intended to treat prostate cancer in men, endometriosis and uterine fibroids in women. It's the same exact drug, Chrissy, that we've given to pedophiles to chemically castrate them. But we now give this to kids for years because this is considered love by the left. This is totally insane. Whether you believe in God or evolution, it's totally insane. If you believe in God, you're saying God made a mistake. And if you believe in evolution, you're saying natural selection doesn't work and that we know better.
Yeah, if this was true and they were all, and it's, I mean, if you take the percentage of young girls who are wrapped up in this right now and you apply that to the larger population, if that were really true and those were truly the people that were supposed to transition, we'd be seeing tons of old people transitioning right now. Now that we have all this, the surgeries and the awareness and the drugs, like why aren't we seeing Caitlyn Bruce Jenner aside, why aren't we seeing more older people transitioning if it's such a huge percentage of the population that need help being who they are.
Yeah, there's within the whole trans umbrella, there's really kind of a few different types. What's going on with girls is totally different than what's going on with these middle-aged men. Some of these middle-aged men, this gets really technical, but they have this condition called autogynephilia, which basically
like
they
a
get
kink.
turned on by the idea
Yeah.
of being a woman. So it's like a fetish for them. But you don't see a bunch of middle-aged women transitioning. You're absolutely right. And so when I mentioned the statistics, like 4,000% increase in girls, and I ask people, why is that happening? They say, oh, it's just because we're more accepting now and they didn't feel safe to come out before. I'll say, okay, well, where are all the 30-year-old women and 40-year-old women and 50-year-old women who were born in the wrong body? How come they're not coming out? Why is it all these middle school girls? So I've developed all these tactics for my street conversations because there's really only 2 or 3 objections I ever hear.
Really? Okay,
There's-
what are they?
Well, the first one is that kids are going to kill themselves if we don't let them transition.
I've heard that so much, and that's how they manipulate parents into going through with this process because they say, "Oh, would you rather have an alive son or a dead daughter?" And like you're literally holding these parents hostage.
That's right. It's grotesque. It's a manipulation. We don't do this with any other condition. We don't say to an anorexic girl, to the parents that, oh, yes, we don't affirm her and say, yes, sweetheart, you're overweight. Let's give you some liposuction. We don't tell the parents if we don't give her liposuction, she's going to kill herself.
Yeah, stop feeding your kid. We have to affirm them.
Right. And it's not even true. So when these people say this to me, and it's almost invariably young women actually who are kind of the foot soldiers for this, 9 out of 10 people who give me abusive comments and that are young women because it's their empathy coming out. They have empathy for all these girls who are transitioning. They all know girls who are transitioning. They've all been taught that people like me are these terrible bigots. And so they're, I don't know what to call this. Some people have called it toxic femininity. It comes out as hatred for people like me. But it's not even true that these kids are all killing themselves. So when you're having these conversations, you don't want to just disagree with people because you don't get anywhere. It's always best to find some source of agreement. So I do agree that yes, suicidality is higher, suicidal ideation is higher, and we need to help these kids. And that will typically calm them down a bit right away. Because it is true. It's just not true that there's this massive actual epidemic of suicides. Suicidality is higher, in fact, for girls with anorexia. It's higher for kids with autism. It's higher for kids with personality disorders. These are kids who are struggling, and we need to help them.
Is it actually higher after people who have fully transitioned?
Yeah, so the suicide rate peaks actually 7 to 10 years after transition. We know this from adult studies. We don't have proper studies with kids because this is also new. But with adults, the best study that was done was in Sweden, and the suicide rate was 19 times higher than their peers 7 to 10 years after the fact.
Wow.
And then the other argument I hear is that puberty blockers are reversible. They're just a pause button. This is a marketing pitch. All these young people are just clones, essentially. Pretty much everyone on the left is a clone. They all have the same opinions because they're only allowed to have certain opinions. And they say these are fully reversible. So my response to that is, okay, sure. Again, try to find some source of agreement. Sure, if we give a kid puberty blockers for 3 months and they come off, not too much harm done.
But they
in
still have a
practice-
permanently deeper voice. Even if you're on T for a couple months, your voice
from
deepens.
testosterone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the puberty blockers don't do that. So there's the 2 components. There's the puberty blockers which block their estrogen, and then there's the testosterone that lowers their voice and gives them all the body hair almost right away. But the puberty blockers, 98% of the time, kids progress from those onto the testosterone or estrogen, the opposite sex hormones. So I'll tell these people, look, where's the time machine? If a girl goes on puberty blockers from 11 to 16, where's the time machine where she gets to go back to 11 and go through puberty again? Of course you can't go back in time. These boys end up with a micropenis for life. And the president of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, a man named Marcy Bowers, so he identifies as a woman, he admitted a couple months ago on a video call that we have that literally 0 of the boys who started on puberty blockers at Tanner stage 2 none of them have ever been able to have an orgasm.
Oof.
So they have no sexual function. We're destroying that in kids as well. This is the biggest child abuse medical scandal in modern history, and we simply cannot let it stand. So that's why I'm out there looking like a crazy guy in a sandwich board.
Do you foresee 20 years from now a lot of lawsuits towards, medical providers? What do you see the backlash 10, 20 years from now?
Absolutely. So I think way before 10 years from now, these have all been banned. It's already happening. It's happened essentially in Sweden and Finland. They will only administer them to certain kids in a research setting. I still don't agree with that, but at least they've done away with the bigger practice. England is making great progress. Certain red states are making progress. But the Democrats are still pushing this hard. And we've got Scott Wiener living up to his last name, who is a California senator who's pushing through a bill right now so that California will be a sanctuary state for any children from all over the nation to come to. So if a girl runs away from home and goes to California, they will take her into their foster system and not return her home to her parents if she wants to get puberty blockers, testosterone, and cut off her breasts. If a non-custodial parent brings their child to California, they will ignore court orders, they will ignore subpoenas, they will ignore arrest warrants.
Ooh.
So even if Texas bans this, all that has to happen is the child can go to California and they'll get whatever they want, no questions asked. So these Democrats are out of control, but we just need to keep creating awareness because politically this is a left versus right issue right now. But when it comes to the voters, it's really not. Yes, you do get more Democrats in favor of this, but I reach people on the left and right of the political spectrum all the time. 90% of the population, as soon as you're able to have any sort of nuanced conversation, agree that we shouldn't be sterilizing kids. Many just don't believe that it's happening. So we're in an information war and we just have to get the information out there, which is why I'm so thankful you're having me on tonight because you're doing great work.
Oh, shucks. You're doing great work. You're out there talking to people IRL. And what do you find, after you speak with people, what are how many, I guess statistically, would you be still hate you no matter what you say or against you, going to attack you no matter what? And how many do you feel like you get through to?
I think 90. Honestly, I've had so many of these conversations, probably 7,000 or 8,000. I'd say it's a little above 90% of people agree with me. Yeah. And the ones who don't just are incapable of having a conversation.
They didn't want to agree with you. Yeah, they didn't. Their minds weren't open to thinking about it differently.
They don't want to know. For the longest time, people would say, "Hey, show me the studies. Show me the studies." So I finally got a website up, which I'm going to improve, but it's billboardchris.com, and I put a bunch of studies on there. I knew they didn't actually want to see them, but now at least I can say, "Oh, here you go. Here's the most recent study under puberty blockers, and then the studies. You'll find it."
No, this is helpful.
And if you scroll down, so there's some good stuff. So go to full study there, the top thing on the right. Yeah. So that's a study that followed 139 boys with genuine gender dysphoria. Followed them from the ages of 4, 5, 6, all the way into their 20s. 87.8% of these boys, when they went through puberty, their gender dysphoria just went away. And 64% grew up to be gay. So we're sterilizing gay kids.
Wow. Oof. Yeah, it's like your hormones they don't all come in equally at equal times. It takes years for them to even out and for you as a person to even out. It seems like common sense.
Yeah. And if you go to I don't know how much time you have, but if you go to genderbreadperson.org.
For you, all the time. Okay. Where am I going?
Genderbreadperson.
Oh, God.
.org. There you go. Go to version 4, somewhere there.
Am I blind? Version 4.
Maybe right at the top. Oh, so there you go. Genderbread person poster. Go down a little bit.
Am I blind? Yes, here it is.
In the yellow. Yeah, so scroll
down.
Is
it. Genderbread person version 4.0.
So this, believe it or not, is the most used resource all around the world. University students are looking at this because it's so scientific. It's in schools everywhere. It's even in gender clinics at children's hospitals. And it defines your gender identity right on there. So what's going on in schools is, depending on your teacher, if you get a teacher with blue or purple hair, you're going to want to have a conversation with this teacher, by the way, parents, because they're probably going to push this stuff. Not always, of course, but there I am stereotyping people, but it's true. They're teaching kids that they have a gender identity. So honestly, this has evolved beyond gender dysphoria. Most of these kids today who say they're trans, they don't even have gender dysphoria at all.
Yeah,
They're
a lot
just
of it's
trans.
depression. A lot of it's, autism.
They just say they're trans. Yeah, there's all sorts of things. There's always some comorbidity. But these kids are being taught they have a gender identity. And if you scroll down there, it teaches that your gender identity is based on your personality, your likes and dislikes, your job, your hobbies, your roles in society, and expectations that are upon you. So,
wow.
Chrissy, what does a comedian make you? Does that make you more of a woman or a man?
Broke. Okay, I would say by just
because your
by
jobs determine your gender. Yeah.
Percentage wise, being a comedian would mean I'm a man.
Yeah, you're more of a man, I guess. This is totally nuts. It's sexist, regressive stereotypes. That's all there is to this entire ideology. Tomboys are not actual boys, just as cowboys are not actual cows.
What they think is being inclusive is actually like you're just steering kids one way. You're not letting them be themselves and figure it out. And it takes years to be yourself and figure it out. Like, I feel like it took me 30 years to figure it out. So it's like, how are you supposed to figure it out, between the ages of like 10 and 12?
Yeah. And they're teaching kids, if you go to the bottom right there, it says sex assigned at birth. Our sex is not assigned. Our sex is observed. In 99.82% of cases, there's absolutely no ambiguity. Only 0.018% of time is there any ambiguity, because some people have a disorder of their sexual development. It doesn't mean they're not male or female.
This intersex thing is incredibly rare. I was a women's studies minor, unfortunately, in college because
I'm sorry.
I was part of the SJW cult, and I learned all about this stuff. It's incredibly rare, and now they're just putting it like this is as common as being male or female.
Yeah, they say it's as common as being redheaded, actually. Totally false. And they're all male or female. So there's some males who are born with their testicles internalized, and maybe they get, assigned female at birth. That's just a mistake. Like Caster Semenya is this South African track athlete who was destroying all the women in track. Well, it's because he's actually a male. But anyway, that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about just healthy kids without any disorders of sex development who are getting indoctrinated into this gender cult. That's the other thing I hear all the time. They go, what about intersex people? Because it's just a method to derail the conversation and move it off to something else. Because if there's one thing a gender ideologue hates, it's conversation. Because as soon as you talk about this rationally, their whole ideology just falls to pieces.
Right. It's like, well, if you're intersex, what are your chromosomes? Like, what were you, can't they test that? If you're a baby born with ambiguous junk, can't they do tests on you? Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are XXY or XXXY. The rule is if there's a Y, you're a male. So that's it.
I feel like, if you have a sense of like how to work a remote control, then you're probably going to be male.
Yeah. If you know which way is north. So,
but if you find yourself asking for directions a lot, then maybe you are a woman.
Probably.
Yeah.
Rule of thumb.
Here I go stereotyping. I'm no better than the gingerbread person.
So anyway, we're lying to our kids, and we got to get the truth out there, because there's no right way to be a girl or boy. You go, girls who are more masculine. You go. You do it. Beautiful. Be gender nonconforming. That's the other thing.
You would be the worst drag queen ever, Chris. Like, you would be truly horrible.
Yes, I would.
You'd have to practice your yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do a couple super chats from NVIDIA. Have you considered that it actually is abusive to not let your children mentally and physically scar themselves for life?
It is abusive to. Oh.
I think they're being clever.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's
she
abusive.
Gave you $5, so that's good.
Yeah. I'm like, say whatever you want. No, NVIDIA's cool. Right. I think it's at least wait till your hormones work themselves out. And then if you want to transition, great. But you're doing that with your adult formed brain.
That's right. This is a decision for adults, and transition is something you do. It's not something you are. So if you're in a whole bunch of distress, you're like Blair White, who had this,
Right.
in their entire life, and then you want to do this as an adult. Well, that's one thing. Doing this to 10, 11, 12-year-olds who've never felt this way is totally insane.
And you have to, like, when you're an adult, it's like, and you want it. It's like, yeah, you want it bad enough. Like, you take the responsibility, the cost. I think that was another, there's another facet of this that I think kids of course they don't realize the cost, and it's just part of health. I think it's part of healthcare for Ivy League schools. I know Rutgers has that included, like transition or hormones in their student health plan. And I think when the cost is taken out of the equation, it's more likely you'll do it kind of like willy-nilly.
Yeah, and Biden is trying to force insurers to cover this as well. It's all a mess. There's so much
It's
stuff
like,
going on.
oh, really?
We could talk for hours.
Can we cover me getting like breast implants? Because I might want them to feel more myself in a few years. We'll see where they're at.
Maybe I'd want testosterone. I'm getting old, So
yeah,
I don't
maybe
think I
you
can
need
just go get it.
some tea to be who you really are.
That's right.
Elsa Barrett says, thanks for doing what you're doing, Chris. Hello from Ontario.
Hey there, fellow Canadian. How's it going? Sorry about Ontario.
Well, we got Canadians in the chat. NVIDIA, hashtag trust the experts. You got to trust the experts, especially if they get paid based on how many drugs they sell you.
That's
Bring
right.
back medical gatekeeping. Yep. Oh, from Trent Steele. They are steering them to reproduce less. Yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You mentioned before you're talking about, like, how did Canada get this way? You're like, oh, it has to do with Trudeau. How you're a lifer in Canada, born and raised?
Yes, I am. I spent a few years in England, but yeah, I've always been here, and we've had Trudeau in power now for 7 years. And if you want to know what would happen to the United States of America if AOC became your president, you just need to look north of the border, because that's essentially what we have, except Trudeau has more power than a president of the United States would have.
Oh, he does?
Up here.
How so?
You have more checks and balances in place. When Trudeau wants something passed, every single politician, for example, will vote with him in his party. There's never any dissent. If there is, they get kicked to the backbenches, stripped of any cabinet position.
Damn.
All of our media is bought and paid for by Trudeau. They're all actually funded by the federal government right now. Otherwise, they belly up. And we only have 3 main media sources, CBC, CTV, and Global. They're all pushing this. We really don't have much conservative media. We have Rebel Media, who you might have seen a bit of.
Oh, yeah.
Ezra Levant runs that company. He's doing a great job, but most people don't really know about them or watch them. We don't have a Fox News. We do have Fox News, so I get to see your news. I've been watching American news for more than 20 years. I'm totally up to speed on everything going down.
Well, it's longer than I have.
Yeah, and I used to be licensed as an investment advisor in the States as well. I had clients around the country. But
wow.
Yeah, we're just a total mess. And
when did you start to see it go down?
Oh, it's one of the reasons I got involved doing this. I just couldn't handle this leftist creep that gets worse and worse every year. Because as a dad, all I care about is my girls and the life I leave to them. And so there's a whole lot going on that I'm not happy with. But this is the craziest issue by far that's going on in society. It's the most harmful one. So that's the one I decided to take on, because I asked myself one day, a couple of years ago, who was going to take a big stand in the real world? And the answer that came back was nobody. Wow. Because if nobody is, it's safe to assume that nobody is going to. And I'm still pretty much the only person in the world doing this. I've had more conversations about this than anyone in the world, so I have a unique perspective. But it's working, what I'm doing. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And I'm not going to stop until this has been banned all over the world.
Do you get recognized a lot, or do you get recognized without your billboard on?
It's happening sometimes. I actually, the craziest moment was I was in some little small town diner in New Jersey on my way from New York back to Washington, D.C., I think. And I pulled off to find lunch somewhere. And the waitress, the server, I guess, I'm not supposed to say waitress, the server recognize me.
Wait,
As
it's
her
a
daughter
wait
had introduced her
person.
to some
It's a
videos.
wait person, Chris.
Wait person. We call them servers up here. I don't know. That doesn't sound right either.
No, it doesn't.
But it's happening sometimes. Yeah, grocery stores. I was camping with the kids last week, and a few people recognized me. So
Oh,
I don't really care
wow.
about any of that. I don't care about any. I didn't even want to talk to media when I started. I was kind of terrified to do it. But you step outside your comfort zone, and your comfort zone expands. So
Does it give you a little bit of like warm fuzzies when it's like positive recognition?
I get a lot of. You know what? I get overwhelmingly positive support. So I'm used to it. I appreciate it every time. I really appreciate it when other people get going and other people have conversations. Because right now, especially in Canada, this has to be word of mouth. It has to be parent to parent.
Right. Because the
And
censorship.
it's working. I've seen it on the streets. It's a dramatic difference from 2 years ago. No one had a clue what these
Really?
puberty blockers were. And now I get way more support. I get people cheer me on from their cars as they drive by and things like that. So
Wow.
it's working.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We got a question from Jimmy Freckles. If Biden actually makes it through his term, the Democrats will have been in charge of this country 12 out of the last 16 years. Woo! That's a long time.
That's a problem.
That's too much. NVIDIA for the boob job fund. Wow. Thanks, NVIDIA. Thanks for the 50. Oh my God. You know, yeah,
That's
I got to be
awesome.
able to express myself with implants. Wowie. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just
the
so
Democrats
impressed
are
with
going to
you,
get
Chris.
destroyed in the midterms. They're totally going to get destroyed.
You
And
think so? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm suspending. I'm not gonna get my hopes up because I don't want to be disappointed. So
I love to see it. It's definitely going to happen. I mean, the economy is tanking. It's a tough thing to do economically, and economics and investments are kind of my specialty. It's a tough thing to have a recession and 9% inflation. That's hard to do. Only a Democrat could do it, and Joe Biden has succeeded in doing it. And that's really what people always care about the most. So yeah, it's common in midterms for the House to flip, and that's going to happen for sure. But we just need more parents to keep speaking out about all this stuff, because as we've seen in Virginia, the governor's race there flipped 20 points in a matter of weeks just because of parents expressing outrage
wow.
at school boards and what was going on in schools. And as we've seen with Ron DeSantis, who's easily the best governor in the country, he's the parents' governor. He just says things that are common sense. He says things that we all said back in 1990 and 1995 that are somehow controversial today. Like
Yeah,
we
he's
shouldn't be
just a
sexualizing
regular guy.
kindergartners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely
but
got daddy energy for sure.
Definitely. So I hope he's the next president for sure. I think he'd do a great job, but the Democrats are going to keep imploding because essentially what's happened to the Democratic Party is they've been taken hostage by the far left wing of their party, because no Democrat is allowed to say no to any of these radicals, because then they'd be anti-LGBT, right?
How did that happen? Like, how did they get completely overtaken by the radical left?
Well, so gay rights, which I'm in favor of, were won, first decade
Yeah.
of the century pretty much.
They're like, what do we have to fight for now? Because everyone's equal.
But you got it. You nailed it. All these LGBT organizations, all these nonprofits, they don't just close their doors and say, hey, we won. They have to keep the donations flowing. They have to keep everyone employed. So their next
keep their
target
jobs.
became trans rights. And we have this extreme queer theory, it's called. James Lindsay, Conceptual James on Twitter, world expert on all these critical theories. He calls it queer Marxism, and he's absolutely right. This is some obscure theory that's kind of been in the corners of universities for years, these postmodernist crazies. And it's come out of university and it's being pushed into society. And they've had great success because they conflate trans rights with gay rights. And so no one dared to speak up against any of this for the longest time, because then they're called a bigot and they're anti-LGBT. And that's what we see up here in Canada, where all of our conservatives even voted unanimously to pass this bogus conversion therapy law where you can't help a girl feel comfortable as a girl without going to jail. So, people are just afraid. And the Democrats, no way will any of them speak out against this stuff. So they're just going to keep imploding. And there will be a correction at some point as information becomes more broadly known. And there's this expression that politics is downstream from culture. So we just need to change the culture. And we do that by having these conversations one at a time and getting the truth out there, because this is just a big propaganda war. It's an information war. They spend hundreds of millions to get these falsities bought throughout society. We just need to tell the truth because it spreads for free.
Do you have any hope for Canada? I don't know how much time Trudeau has left, but are you
Well,
feeling at all positive?
Trudeau won the election in last October, but he only has a minority of the seats because we have more than 2 parties. So a lot of times the party that wins the most seats does not have a majority of seats, because we have 4 or 5 parties with seats up here. So he's teamed up with an even further left-wing party to pass whatever laws they want. So basically, if he wants to pass a bill, he'll just bribe the even further left-wing party by giving them something that they want, and then they'll support him. And they've made a pledge to keep him in power for 4 more years. But we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
It's a total tragedy up here.
But you're staying true. You're sticking to your guns. You're holding down the fort there in Canada.
Yeah, I'm positive. We're going to win this battle. Absolutely. It's just a question of how much harm comes to kids before we do. And politically, we will reverse this in time. We're going to have to get rid of a bunch of these fake conservatives as well. But we're going to get there because this is too crazy to last. And the same thing's going to happen down south.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the work you do, Chris. Where can people find you and follow you and, just stay up to date with you?
At Billboard Chris on Twitter is where I do most of my campaigning. It's where I always update my stuff. I don't show up in the search bar because Twitter's censoring me. Twitter made my account 18 plus.
What?
Yes.
I wonder if
All
they
of
did
my
that to me.
pictures of me standing on the street in my sandwich board there, any tweet I do, unless you've adjusted your settings, they won't show up because it's sensitive content.
You're right. Oh my God, that's true. Because when I was looking through, I have like an old Twitter account that was just for my old show at the Stonewall Inn, but I still have the Twitter account. And when I was looking at my account from that account, I was like, why is it age restricted? And it was, I think, my post about you. So crazy.
Yeah, I'm a dangerous man.
It's so dangerous.
So at Billboard Chris, my website's billboardchris.com. You'll find my Twitter feed on there as well. And if people want to support me, I'm traveling around the US quite a lot. I'm going to be in Illinois in a couple weeks.
Nice.
Speaking at an event there. I'm going to be up in Chicago. I'm going to be doing some billboarding out on the street with a bunch of parents. So that woman in that picture right there, that's Jeanette Cooper.
I'll put it back.
She was just featured. She's been featured in a few videos lately because the state took away her daughter.
Are you kidding me? Is she in Canada as well?
No, she's I think she's in Illinois actually. And
holy cow.
She's a lesbian, and the state took away her daughter because she knew that testosterone wasn't the best thing for her girl. Because guess what, Chrissy? Parents know their kids.
Clearly the government knows better though.
But she wasn't affirming enough and didn't want her daughter to be harmed, so
damn.
The state took her away. This is happening all over the place. A woman in California I met, her name's Abigail Martinez. The state of California took her away from her because she knew testosterone wasn't the best thing for her daughter. And while she was separated in a foster home on testosterone that the state was administering, her poor girl knelt down in front of a train. So, this stuff gets really heavy. But I'm a joyful warrior teaming up with Moms for Liberty, 100,000 moms across the country, and they're going to keep growing. They'll be at 250,000 at least in a year. And we are going to end this madness. So sorry for all the heavy stuff, but there's a lot of
part
hope
of
as
life.
Well.
We got it. That's why it's so important, is because it's no joke, really. It's pretty serious and it's life altering. NVIDIA says Twitter doesn't like people standing up to big trans. That's funny. Yeah, we call it big trans. That's great.
You got it. Yeah, so if people want to donate to my cause, I am not a rich guy. I've done all this with zero, actually. But I've got parents all over the world supporting me. And if you want to support me, there's a donate button on my website. But mostly what I ask is for people just to have conversations and to get up to speed about this. And if you're a parent, get knowledgeable, maybe join a chapter of Moms for Liberty, and go to these school board meetings and raise heck, because it's child abuse is what is going on. And our kids are being indoctrinated, not educated. And this is how we're going to put a stop to it. Making some good old fashioned noise with all these crazy people.
And that's what being a parent is all about. It's like the same reason why you wouldn't let your kid eat ice cream for every meal. It's like, yeah, what would be a momentary appeasement of a kid, make your kid what your kid thinks will make them happy in the moment, over the long term is actually quite damaging. And it's the same principle, just on a much larger scale. And it's like, it's your job as a parent to protect your kids. And this is serious stuff. From Fernandez T. You a beauty, Chrissy. USA.
Is that for me?
Yes, this is for you. They spelled Chris
Yeah.
wrong.
Well,
So-
Chrissy, I was called Chrissy until I was about 10.
Oh, wow. Maybe this is
Yeah,
an old friend.
My grade 1 teacher asked me if I wanted to be called Chris or Christopher, and I said Chrissy. So
Wow,
yeah.
how woke of you.
Yeah, and then everyone, then when I remember being like 15 and I'd grown out of that phase, and moms down the street were still calling me Chrissy, and it was extremely embarrassing. But yeah, I grew up as a Chrissy for a little while.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
You were like a trailblazer. Chris, you're the best. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. Everybody follow Chris on Twitter. Check out his website. Support him. Throw him a couple bucks if you can. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Maybe I'll see you out and about at an event.
Yeah,
one day.
I'm going to get to New York a few times a year for sure. So yeah, let's hang out. I'll reach out next time I come on.
Let's hang. I'll make a sign.
And maybe I can come on stage and tell some dad jokes.
Oh, that would be great. That would be a dumpster fire. I'm excited for that.
I'm down for it. I'm used to being ridiculed, so it's all good.
Thank you, everybody in the chat, for your questions and comments. Until next time.